Welcome to heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. As always, I am Mike Chisholm. As always, I am excited to be here to do this, to talk to interesting people about the subject of mental wellness, especially in the arena of men's mental wellness. We all have stories. We all have things that we have gone through that contribute to our mental health, to our mental wellness, and we learn things along the way. It's through learning those things, talking about those things, and sharing and listening to those things where we can be better. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. In fact, it's the entire purpose of what my wife and her team are building with HeChangedIt. We want to change the world. We want to be a resource for men around the world. World Health Organization calls men's mental wellness a silent crisis. Guess what? We're going to do something about it. We are doing something about it, and it's exciting. If you haven't downloaded the HeChangedIt app, what the heck are you waiting for? It's in the beta stage. It's in infancy, but be part of something as it explodes, as it grows and does its thing and becomes a world changer. Please download the app. Also, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing and sharing this podcast, whether it's on the YouTubes for your eye holes or your the other podcast platforms for your ear holes, if you wouldn't mind liking, sharing, subscribing, the overlords of HeChangedIt love their metrics, and we would just really appreciate any sharing of this show. Now, every time I do one of these, I talk about how excited I am and how this is a special episode. They all are. They're all like a beautiful one-of-a-kind Fabergé egg. That's how I view heCast. This one here is a very heartfelt, personal episode for me. I have talked on the show before about my granddaughter and what she went through, what we found out in 2018. Or 2019, I should say, Christmas Eve of 2019, we found out that my then 18-month-old granddaughter had a tumor the size of my fist behind her tailbone. It was an ordeal, to say the least. We ended up going to BC Children's Hospital with my stepson and daughter-in-law, and my wife and I, we just basically let life go, and we went down there to go through this with Alara, our granddaughter. Thankfully, we have a happy ending to that story. We've talked about that a little bit on this podcast. We've had my stepson Nico on this podcast. You can go and check it out. Candy and I wrote a book about it. You know, she changed me. One ordeal, two perspectives. That's what the net result of us doing this. Whenever we go through something negative, if we can figure out a way to take anything that we've learned in that negative experience and turn it into a positive, that's what our goal is. That's what we try and do. Candy and I wrote a book. Now, we get down to BC Children's Hospital in late December of 2019. We don't know anybody. We don't know anything. The kids are staying at a facility called Ronald McDonald House. I'm certain that you know about what Ronald McDonald House is. You've seen commercials and things like that, but you don't know what it is until you actually realize what it is they do. Within a couple hours of being in Vancouver, strangers in a strange land, we realized how powerful this, not just charity, but this organization, this place that supports families during their most dire time is, and it's extremely important. Within my, we were moving the kids into Ronald McDonald House, and Nico and I were there maybe 15 minutes. We had just finished a tour, or we were actually on a tour of the facility and talking about the ins and outs. And we were going to, if you've never been to Ronald McDonald House, there's different pods. And all the pods have like a kitchen, an eating area, an area where you can kind of hang out, and all of the different parts of the apartments in the facility. People come down to those pods. We were going through the tour of the kitchen of the pod that Nico and his wife and Alara we're going to be in. And I rounded the corner and I literally bumped into the guest on this podcast today, a very friendly Englishman named TJ Hodgkinson. I can tell you that he was very friendly, and within about 10 minutes, he told me of his story. He was there for the past year. We happen to be from the same geographic location where we live. He was already there for a year with his son, William. And I mean, what he told us, what they were going through, oh my goodness. We went through we became fast friends. went back and forth on things, and it's just one of those things where it's the universe sometimes plops people in your life at exactly the right time, and you don't know why, and sometimes the timing shows up a little bit later. And that's what happened in this situation here. But we've stayed friends. We got to leave with Alara being cured, cancer-free, about 5.5 months in to our journey. Tim stayed down there another year with his son. Tim has an extensive business background and all sorts of other stuff that I'm not going to go into right now. We can go to it in the conversation. But my wife and I, what did we do when we went through the situation? Well, we wrote a book to try and help people. What did Tim do? Well, because of this extensive business background and some of the things that he has done in his life, decided to be a world changer in his own way. And he has built a foundation around childhood kidney cancer. And not just a foundation, but a foundation that is going to lead the charge for other foundations, for other groups, for other medical professionals. We are going to, and I say we because I am a full-fledged supporter of this thing. As far as I'm concerned, this is a crossover podcast. This is a heCast episode because we're going to talk about mental health and talk about fathers and grandfathers having sick kids and what you do for that shit. We're going to talk about that, but this is also a podcast that he and his foundation will be able to use because Tim's going to tell his story. He has graciously allowed me to leverage our personal relationship to come in here today and talk about this. I'm about 2 minutes longer on my intro today. It's a special episode. This is a very special guy. And not only that, when he found out what Candy and her team are building with HeChangedIt here, he came in and said, well, how can I help? And for that, we will be eternally grateful because the stars for HeChangedIt changed on that day as well. And I get emotional thinking about it because sometimes the universe puts people in your life that are like low-flying angels. And Tim is certainly one of that for us. TJ, fuck, I said I wasn't going to call you Tim and I did. The TJ, the T, I've revealed what the T is. TJ, thank you for allowing me to leverage our friendship and take advantage of our friendship and you agreeing to come on here. I cannot tell you how much of an honor it is for me to have you across the table as a guest for heCast.
That's very kind, Mike. Thanks so much. I don't know whether I can live up to the expectations or the billing, but thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's
friendly
a delight.
British chap. There he is.
There you go. Yeah, I've tried to.
Yeah, not only do you live up to it and beyond, so you're humble and I appreciate the humbleness, but you are also a force of nature. You're a power in this world. And I just appreciate this so much. Before we get into anything here, how's William today? How old is William now? And how is he doing at this moment?
William's about to turn 12. He's 11, about to turn 12 next month. And I'm delighted to say that for the first time in 4 years, he's cancer-free.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's
4 years.
4 years.
4 years.
4-year journey. It was, yeah, absolutely. So we are... Yeah, normal is the new normal, and it takes some getting used to. But we're right at this moment. We're delighted and enjoying every moment. Every moment.
Yeah. Whenever we go through something, and I mean, it doesn't have to be something as dire as a child in your life having cancer, but when we go through something, we have whatever it is, we have the opportunity to come out on the other side with a perspective, if we choose to use it, a perspective that is fresh, where you can really have a renewed or a different, evolved type of gratitude.
Absolutely.
That you just didn't have.
Yeah.
And I think it serves us as men to kind of take stock of these things. I think so many times men get tunnel visioned and you know, we're task oriented and have these instincts inside of us just to put our head down and just go to work. But when we pop our head up and we think about, okay, I was here, now I'm here, that gratefulness can fuel the fire in us when we are tunnel visioned and we're moving forward. It can fuel the steam shovel, can't it?
Absolutely. I think so. You know, and I obviously will get onto the story of our story or William's story in a minute. But just on that point, you know, I always, up until my son was diagnosed with cancer, I always felt that I got it. I was one of these people that, you know, I don't get everything, but I smell the roses. You know,
sure.
I was fortunate enough. been around the block a bit, I travelled, business, all these things. But until you're faced with either your own mortality or the mortality of somebody that you care more about than yourself, like your children, you don't really, it's hard to say that you get anything, because it really is a watershed moment. Well, it certainly has been for me. And nothing looks the same at all.
So he's almost 12 now. So he was 7 years old.
He was 7, when he was diagnosed.
Let's go into the story. We're going to talk about the foundation and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, William, one of the most inspirational children I've ever met, one of the most inspirational people I've ever met. You were going to school.
Yeah,
that's where it started, right? It all started getting ready to go to school and going to school. Well,
sort of. It actually started on Saturday. There's a local ski hill near us, and it's only 30 minutes up the road. But we went up there Saturday morning. By the time we'd got up to the hill, he was complaining of a tummy ache. Nothing more, just a tummy ache. And so it was a pointless journey, really. So we had to turn around, had our hot chocolate chili dog, and then no skiing, and then came back home, and he was sick. He was throwing up a little bit, but nothing.
Could have been the chili dog.
Exactly, really. Yeah. Or the hot chocolate.
Sure.
But he wasn't very well, and I thought at the time. I mean, we're in January, end of January, and I thought, well, maybe he's got the flu or he's got a cold. A tummy bug. He's at school. Absolutely. Schools are petri dishes for everything. So anyway, he had an okay night. Sunday we laid low. He played Xbox. I lost, as can't keep up with my 7-year-old.
FIFA? Is that what is that the game?
FIFA.
Well,
okay.
Yep.
Anyway, Sunday we laid low. Monday. He wasn't too well, and I thought I'd keep him off school for the Monday, and then that Monday night he was actually crying out in pain, and he ended up sleeping in with me. And at that point I thought, okay, this isn't quite right. I've got to get him checked out, but I still wasn't too sure what was going on. So put him in his school uniform the next morning, and thought I would stop off at the local hospital on the way to school, take him in, no panic. Mm-hmm. And see if he needed the flu shot or what what's going on, or if it was the hot dog. But anyway, it was there began the story and the journey, and we were in there for about 3 hours in A&E with the curtain around us, and it was a classic movie moment. We were sitting in there oblivious to what was going on. And I should say that fortunately, where we are in the world, in British Columbia, Canada, if a child is taken into an A&E department with an abdominal pain, it's protocol for them to take an X-ray. And so that's the first thing they did. But again, no panic. We'll just take an X-ray and the doctor will be with you. Yeah, for sure. And the doctor will be with you shortly. And so we did that first. But after 3 hours, we're still sitting there. He's going up the wall because for the first time in his life, he wants to go to school because he's bored, bouncing off the ceiling. And, I'm in my suit. Typically, I need to get to a meeting. Come on, let's hurry on here. And then all of a sudden, the curtain swished back, and the attending A&E doctor asked if she could speak to me. And she took me to one of those rooms that every A&E department has, but that you never know exists until it's needed. Yeah. And, I've been in A&E for stitches and stuff, but I didn't know they were there. So I was taken into a little room, and there were 2 chairs in the room. There's nothing else. And I remember, I was asked to sit down, and then the doctor said, grab the other chair and sat down right in front of me. I mean, literally like that, almost nose to nose. And at that point, I think that's when I started to think, okay, something's not quite right. What's going on? Yeah. And then the next thing, all I can remember is she was talking, and I have no idea what she was saying. But I said, "Did you say cancer?" And she said, "Yeah, I'm so sorry, Mr. Hodgkinson. Can be no doubt. I'm terribly sorry." And so I said, you've got to start again. And start from the beginning. So what had transpired in the 3 hours is that they had taken the X-ray, and the X-ray show on the X-ray there was a massive tumour attached to William's kidney, and it was larger than the size of his own lung. Just to put it in perspective, it was absolutely massive. And the X-ray had been sent from our local hospital to our regional hospital, and then about an hour away, and then it had been sent to the main hospital, which in this case was Vancouver, the Children's Hospital, and from there to the actual specialist building for children with life-threatening and terminal diseases. And it basically been looked at by everybody, and come back, and so whilst we were sitting on this bed in A&E, there was a whole operation getting itself together, a whole logistical operation. So anyway, I was told by the doctor sitting in that room that already the head of pediatrics was 10 minutes away. They'd already been in the car for almost an hour from the regional hospital. They would be there. And she said, we still didn't know what type of cancer it was, I should say, at this stage. We just knew there was this large mass. Right. And she said to me, can I do anything? Do you need to call anybody? And William at this point was oblivious. He was still in the bed in A&E. Yeah. And I said, well, I think I should call their mother right away, called her, and she came. I said, you've got to come to the hospital. I can't talk. Got to get to the hospital. And the phone went dead. She clicked the phone and she was there really, really quickly. Anyway, at that point, we were told that, the reason that William was suffering from his stomach pains is because the tumour was actually so large it started to hemorrhage. And it was very, very important that we got him immediately to the larger provincial hospital in Western Canada, which is the BC Children's Hospital, and that he had to be sedated in order to control the hemorrhaging tumour. So we were taken, I went with William immediately to BC Children's Hospital, and they sedated him, and over the course of 4 or 5 days, they assembled a medical team in order to attempt to remove the tumour, and they had to remove the kidney as well. That was the plan. But in the course of those 3 or 4 days, while they were putting the team together, they naturally conducted more tests, and they discovered that he had a further 9 tumours on his lungs. So the cancer had metastasized or spread. Yep. So we were immediately facing effectively 2 storylines, one with a massive tumour on his kidney and one with, what was going on in the lungs. So it was pretty shocking. That was our sort of entry level moment into. I
got to ask a question here. I'm going to try very hard not to interrupt as much as I can, but at the end of the day, I mean, we talk about, you get your head wrapped around, he's got a massive growth, and the kidney, and here's what we're going to do. And then suddenly, when you think you've hit rock bottom, the bottom falls out again.
Absolutely.
And there are 9 other problems that we got to deal with along the way. And do you remember, can you put yourself back in that time where that moment where the rock bottom was there and then the bottom dropped out again? You realized, oh shit, we're not at rock bottom.
Well, I can to an extent, because it's all naturally, it's a bit of a blur, as you can imagine.
Yes.
Because it's shock. You're in shock,
yes.
And so it's very hard to take everything on board in those initial hours and days. But I do remember feeling, that feeling when you're falling, when you're on a roller coaster or something, and you're free falling, and your tummy's up here, and you just feel a little bit lightheaded, and it was that feeling, but constantly. There was no let up. It was for days. So it was a lightheadedness, a dizziness, a panic, very much a panic. One was feeling at the time. To put this even more into perspective, the shock, aspect, you have to remember that up until the moment William had a tummy ache on the ski hill, on the bunny hill, he had been a normal, active 7-year-old little boy. Yeah. He was in swimming. He was playing football, ice hockey, rough and tumble, all of that, like any other kid. So it was absolutely shocking and unexpected that this happened. There were no hindsight is 20/20 vision.
Absolutely.
There were.
Yeah, you start asking and questioning. Oh my God, when this comes up, you start looking back, going, "Oh, was this part of that? Was that part of that?" And you question all these things, which isn't really that useful. But that's, as humans, that's what we do, and you almost gotta. That's almost a skill you got to learn through this process like this too, is just not doing that. But of course, that's natural to do that.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. Well, you bet over the next few years, you hit yourself over the head about it and say, could I have done this? Could I have done that? But you couldn't. I mean, you think that it is what it is. But
absolutely.
But anyway, it was absolutely shocking. It was every parent's nightmare, as it's been termed by others in the past. And but. There we are. We're in the hospital. We were in this specialist centre called the Tech Acute Care Centre, yep. As you know. That's where yep. we've been over there together a few times. Sir. And the medical team was ready to go after 4 or 5 days. William had been sedated at this point, again, to manage the hemorrhaging of the tumour. And they went in to operate. But the operation had to be aborted because the tumour was so large and had been inside for so long that it had fused itself to other organs in his body. So, we had this tumour on the kidney. And I should say that also that the kidney that the tumour was on wasn't actually functioning either, but it was kept. I don't want to get too grim about these things, but it was kept from
because he's okay, everybody.
Yeah,
he's okay now.
Absolutely. But the tumor was supplying the kidney, although the kidney wasn't functioning, it was supplying the kidney with blood supply and all this. So it was the kidney
symbiotic, essentially.
Absolutely. Yeah. The parasitic tumor became the host. It was a really odd situation. But anyway, it was so large, they had to abort this operation. It had fused itself to. It was obviously on the kidney, but it was on his diaphragm. It stuck to part of his stomach, his pancreas, his spleen, upper colon. It was not a good situation. But when you're in these situations, what the medical teams do is that it's all about planning. So, you hit a roadblock, but rather than, just panic about it, you just have to work through things analytically and methodically. And so the plan was to keep William sedated for a little bit longer, and then to try the operation, hit him with chemo, give him some rounds of chemo, and then try the operation later, which they did some months later. And it was unsuccessful and too risky. So we... and all the time we're obviously at his bedside. I mean, it was pretty intense.
Yeah, let me note here.
Sure.
The day of school, the day you go to the hospital, okay, within 24 hours you're in Vancouver.
Yep.
Yeah, you hadn't come home at this point.
No. I mean, I basically that was it.
You packed a bag and that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
We're gone. So your whole life is completely. It's your day-to-day life stops, and you're put into a brand new life, brand new environment. People, I mean, it's alien to you. It's just plonked, taken out and plonked somewhere else. Yeah, instantly. So
you're down there. So some months later, and that one was unsuccessful. This is also, you haven't been home. You haven't.
Nope.
You're now. This is your new normal. This is the ecosystem of emotions and
absolutely.
And
what
life
phone calls and messages are piling up. Bills are piling up.
Yep.
It's all piling up.
Yep.
But actually, you're not. In all fairness, you're not even concerned about that because you're so hyper focused on what's at hand, right?
Absolutely.
With that. So, but they attempted to operate one more time, and it was at that point it was considered a life or death operation, nothing to do with the cancer, but they, the tumor had been hit by chemo for a few cycles. It was angry. It was pretty pissy. And, so they had to get it out, and the kidney. And because of William's weakened physical condition through the chemo and being so ill, undergoing an operation like that, I mean, a straight kidney operation would have been massive for anybody, an adult included. Yeah. But to have, this tumor and this cancer going on and all the chemo, he may not have made it through the operation itself. So it was a tense time. And I think that was slated to be about a 14-hour operation. And then, you're classically in one of these operating waiting rooms where there's a big clock on the wall. Yeah. And it's that all of a sudden that second hand is ticking really loudly and very slowly. It's an intense time.
When in our book, and I mean, again, this is one of those perspective moments where it's like, okay, the situation that you may have is bad, but it can always be worse. And I think about that. But in the book, in my part of the book, I talk about, you don't know when you hit rock bottom sometimes. Our rock bottom was Alara's surgery day. Right. Now hers was 7.5 hours. Yours was double that. Yeah. But for me personally, that 7.5 hours, I can remember laying on her floor in her room in the hospital, just looking up at the ceiling. Oh, it was the longest.
I know that.
Longest day of my life.
Yeah.
Was that day. Like, there is no longer day in my entire life than Alara's surgery day. You have had those long days multiple times. I want to pause this right now, because the 9 tumors and all the other stuff that had going on, and there's things that obviously we're only a part way down the road, but I want to bring up the foundation right now. Sure. Because at the end of the day, childhood kidney cancer research, treatment, helping people going through it. That's what the foundation is all about, right? This is the major part of William's medical journey.
Absolutely.
Is this part here. So I want a little, if we can hyper focus on that a little bit. Yep. Because at the end of the day, this is why this foundation exists now, is because we know frighteningly little compared to what we could know about this. And you're fixing to change that.
Oh, we're going to try.
It's happening already.
Absolutely.
It's happening already.
We're making great inroads. And through the journey, I mean, one of the things as a parent that you feel when you're in these situations, as you would know as a grandparent, is you feel utterly helpless, terrified and helpless. Yep. And, whilst it's a very intense time and it can be a very busy time, when you're going through these sort of medical treatments, or your child is, it can be, there's a lot of time on your hands as well. There's a lot of sitting there.
Well, the downtime too. Yeah. Like intensity, and then, okay, hurry up and wait. And the hurrying up and waiting is not comfortable.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
So I felt the need, again, like any other parent, I felt the need to help and do something. And you just don't know what to do. There's not a lot to do. But one of the things I realized was that I saw where there were a lot of families coming through that were as terrified as us.
We were one of them.
There we go. Yeah, absolutely.
The friendly Englishman that I literally bumped into that within 10 minutes assured me about the place and all that. Yeah. So that was you.
You're going to make me blush here.
Well, it's the truth. It's the truth. I didn't know shit about shit. And suddenly there's this guy telling me, okay, it's going to be okay. This is going to be what your normal is. Here's what to expect. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. Like, holy cow. How did you become that guy? Because this is around the time in the story here. It was shortly after that you met me.
Yep.
Like shortly after. I know some stuff had happened, but it was right around that time that you met me.
It was about 7 months in or something like that.
So you're going through this and okay, it's slow time and stuff. So you just decide, okay, I'm going to try and help others or be positive.
Well, it's partly, if I can term it, it's partly charitable because you want to help people for sure, but it is also partly cathartic and therapeutic for yourself as well, right? Because it takes but there's part of it that takes your mind off the reality that you're going through, and you're substituting it with somebody else's story in a way, but you feel you can help, you can offer something, again, going back to feeling helpless when you're in this situation. Well,
and men like to help.
Absolutely. I think absolutely. No question. All the men I've met in this scenario are similar. But if you can, okay, so you play to your strengths in that situation. I've been in it for 7 months already. You're coming into it in a new situation. Well, I can impart some experience and knowledge and support. So that's helping. That's what you want to do, right? You can feel useful in doing that. And hope that you are useful in doing that. But that's so going back to the foundation.
Yes,
having sat there for some months watching all this going on around me, I felt I needed to do something. And again, this expression, play to your strengths. Now, my background, as you said in the intro here, was in business and consulting. I was originally in the advertising industry back in the 80s in London. In the mid-90s, I moved into .coms and tech, and then I'm a serial entrepreneur, and with the successes and the failures.
Sure,
that's the failures being
the learnings along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what I could do is maybe set up an organisation to offer support to other families. Other dads, other mums, see what we can do here. But my intention was to set something up that was really quite regional. So maybe a bit broader than Vancouver and British Columbia, where we were, maybe Western Canada, maybe the Pacific Northwest. So I went about setting up the foundation, which to me, I know the mechanics of setting up an organisation, and that's, okay, it's a charity. I knew, okay, you've got to do different things with the money that's coming in, but it's essentially the same mechanics. It's a business, and it's got to work in a commercial sense. Otherwise, you're not going to get donations and all that. So that's what I did. Whilst I was sitting with William, at his bedside, really with one hand tied behind my back because of that, I looked to set up an organisation that could offer support to these people that were coming through and were like deer in the headlights. Some people had never been even to a city before, and they were being thrust into this medical world where they were terrified about their child's diagnosis. And at the same time, in these new surroundings, they just didn't know how to function.
Yeah.
So, it's all very well for you and I to sit here and say, okay, we can cope with it in certain respects, but others had nothing. They just really had nothing.
Absolutely.
So I looked to set the foundation up, did so. What I hadn't realised at the time, and I should say it's the Wilms Cancer Foundation.
Yes.
And it's specifically focused on childhood kidney cancer, pediatric kidney cancer, which is obviously what my son was suffering from.
Yeah.
But what I hadn't realised in the process of setting it up, it eluded me for some reason, is when we turned or put the open sign on, or turned the lights on, in this case online on the internet, I got absolutely swamped, like flooded with requests. Not all financial, some looking for emotional support, some people looking for information, and not just from parents, an extended family, but also from other healthcare organisations. And as it turned out, despite Wilms, which is this kidney cancer, being the number one childhood kidney cancer, and Wilms being the fourth most common childhood cancer overall in the world, not one organisation existed that solely focused specifically on childhood kidney cancer.
Isn't that amazing?
It was an extraordinary moment.
Yeah.
Lots of the big charities and healthcare organisations, hospitals carry information on the disease, but there was no singular organisation that acted as a rallying point that could offer, as I say, financial support, emotional support, information, networking tool, and I'd simply done that, and then got this avalanche of people from everywhere. And overnight, we were getting requests and contacts from people throughout Canada, the US, the UK, throughout Europe, South America, South Africa, over to Thailand, Southeast Asia, you name it. So it was quite a breathtaking moment.
Well, you think about somebody who starts a business for the first time. And one of the things when it comes to business is there a market for this? you starting this foundation and instantly realizing, and it's almost macabre to say it like this, but it kind of is the same thing. They're kind of cousins to each other. You suddenly realize, holy shit, there's a market for this.
Yeah.
There's
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness. And that's not market. That's the wrong word. It's a need. That's
Absolutely,
right.
yeah.
But when you're doing something like this, an undertaking like this, you almost, like you say, have to look at it that way. I've seen so many charitable organizations that have their heart in the right place, but strategically they are up their butts. They just don't even know, like
all noble causes.
Yes.
All of them.
Yes.
To a person. But absolutely.
But you're the guy though that could see this and go, okay, to use a hockey phrase, I see where the puck is going when it comes to this. There's a massive need that we need to help. And I mean, I laughed a little bit when you were saying, okay, well, maybe it'll be regional, like British Columbia or whatever. Because I'm laughing because the universe said, okay, well, hold my beer. No. You're going worldwide, man. And you're going worldwide quickly,
Absolutely.
Which is what's happening right now with the foundation. And it's amazing to see that. I want to exclamation point something. The most common childhood cancer is Wilms, WILMS.
The fourth most common childhood cancer is Wilms.
Okay.
The number one kidney cancer is Wilms.
The number one kidney cancer is
childhood
Wilms.
kidney cancer. Yeah, absolutely.
And there was nothing.
And there was nothing. And it was quite astonishing. Even to this day, it's astonishing. And so it was something that everybody had been waiting for. And I don't want to get too spiritual or anything like that as such, but when that happened, and I realized, because of my commercial background, as you're putting it here, I realized, oh gosh, nobody's doing this. There's a real need for this. There's a real desperate need for this. I was reminded of a quote by Winston Churchill when he was voted in as Prime Minister at the beginning of the Second World War. Yeah. And, he was hailed as going to be the saviour. He was the only guy that, had the tools for the job, as he had all this experience.
Wartime leader.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And his famous quote in his autobiography is, he said that night that he became Prime Minister, he felt that his whole life had been but a dress rehearsal for that particular moment. And that's exactly how I feel about the foundation. I had no idea that I was going to end up in the charitable sector. But what I do know is I have my experiences. I have all the experiences to try to make it work and try to do a good job and bring something. And I'm not the best at everything, but I did have the skill sets to set the business, up, make it commercially viable as a charity, and bring the team together and then grow it as far as we've got it at the moment. So it does feel like a moment of destiny for me out of this great trauma and great tragedy. Very often you find if you look into the abyss deep enough, there is something good right at the bottom, but you've got to look deep. And this is it. This for me is that sort of thing. And I couldn't, I'm invested in it as well. I should say, it was the other skill set. It's not just of business and marketing, communications and all that, and corporate governance management, but it was also, I had the experience of being a parent, and my son had gone through it. So I had that ultimate customer understanding and knowledge, if you see what I mean.
It's a cocktail that you couldn't replicate.
No, you couldn't.
It literally was a unique cocktail of events and skill sets, like you said, and experiences, all culminating into a moment where that is the unique moment that it could culminate into for these things to happen, which does feel like destiny. It does feel like, holy smokes, you got to pay attention. And it's one of those moments in life where you do pay attention.
Can I say,
please.
Mike, and I'm not an expert at anything in life. Ask my kids, definitely not at Xbox.
None of us are.
At FIFA, Xbox or anything like that. I can't, or modern tap or ballet,
Sure.
like my daughter takes me to, right? But I, you do what you can. You just do what you can. You do the best you can. Win or lose, success or failure, if you feel inspired, and naturally I'm inspired, I'm invested emotionally in the whole subject because of what's happened to us. But if you're inspired by something, then that's the mission. I believe that's what you should do with your life.
Thank you for saying that. I've always been a student of personal development, and I feel like my life has evolved from where I came from and is going into some very, very interesting places. That evolution has been aided by personal development, reading all sorts of books, reading all sorts of, listening to all sorts of inspirational leaders, Mr. Churchill. And I just feel like you are a walking personal development book, Tim. TJ, you are literally, to me, I love when we talk in our conversations because you are a walking personal development book. You're living it. And I think that's it's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
But that's life. I mean, it's you every day should be about development on oneself, and I mean, if you're getting up in the morning,
there's a lot of shit that's stopping us, and it's cloudy. It's a lot of fog out there. Yeah. You're right. That is what it should be about. Yeah. And sometimes it takes a tragedy of some sort or something that's really, really tough to clear that fog away and show you what is really important. And you are a living example of that, and to be able to articulate it so our viewers and listeners can maybe figure out in their life what's fog and what's not, and what they could do. I think that this is extremely helpful. Talking about the foundation is extremely helpful. I'm going to go back to the narrative of our story because there's a beautiful moment, and maybe what we can do is as I'm talking about this, maybe a couple of the pictures can flash up as this happens. But we're in the hospital. Surgery has happened. For us, again, situations can always be worse. When we were there with Alara, the tumor the size of my fist behind her tailbone, the concern was that it might have become had a symbiotic relationship with any other organs. Well, it didn't. It hadn't at that point.
But the fear's there.
The fear was there.
And you don't know.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the surgery happened. They took it all out. I've got pictures of that. I'm not showing that to anybody except it looked like a human heart. It was a very surreal thing to see. And then they came back from pathology and they're like, yeah, no, this is cancerous. We're also going to give her 4 rounds of chemo. And that was shocking, because we had hoped that we were going there to have a cyst removed. Well, that wasn't what it was. And so right before Alara's, I believe it was her 2nd round of chemo, we're in the room, our new normal. We were down there with our kids. And so the kids would usually take the morning shift with Alara. We'd come over with food and stuff for them, let them go back to Ronald McDonald House and recharge. And Candy and I would take the rest of the night with Alara, or vice versa. It was one of those moments, for whatever reason, that all 4 of us were in the room at the same time. Again, I'm going to do my very best to stay professional here. And as soon as I say professional, it's like, oh shit, Mike, you're a professional. Keep the emotions back. And that's what I'm going to do. This sweet little boy with a charming Englishman father started walking up the hall with a gigantic check. And it was for $1,000. And it was made out to Alara and her family, and you guys, William with no hair and just this smile, this glow, this kid who was going through hell. And I mean, I don't want to make you emotional when I say this. This kid who we heard screaming with radiation treatments and had went through hell. Yeah. Physical torture. Yeah. Was how he would take what he was going through. Yeah. But yet at the same time, whenever he could, had this smile and this glow. And he came in with his check and you guys presented our family with that. And I believe we were the very first recipient of any money from the foundation.
Absolutely.
Is that the case?
Absolutely.
Holy shit.
Yeah. We were still dealing with that first year of treatment and everything. We were still in the thick of everything. So
I saw him at the there was an art gallery presentation here about 6 weeks ago, a couple months ago, and I saw William, and he's running around. He's just being him, right? As this beautiful painting has been curated. Shout out to Fiona Neal, the artist Fiona Neal. Beautiful. Valiant is the name of the piece. Unbelievable painting. It's stunning. Painting. Yeah. You use it for your background for Zoom calls, which I think is just awesome. Yeah. Because it was an emotional piece created around William, but your journey, his journey, and everyone's journey. It's just beautiful, beautiful piece in oranges, which is the colors of kidney cancer awareness.
Cancer, yeah.
And so I saw him at that event, and he's running around just being a kid.
Yeah.
Which,
yeah,
because we can heal.
And just to put that in perspective, I'm just going to go back to finishing, brief, but I'll be brief.
Yes.
Finishing William's story, actually.
Yes.
So I think we got to the point where I was saying we were in that hospital, and they were in the operating waiting room. So supposed to be a 14-hour operation.
Yes.
4.5 hours in, the lead surgeon comes out. We think the worst, naturally, because it's coming out early. But on this life or death moment, surgeon comes out and the operation had been a complete success. All the chemo, I think there'd been 8 or 9 rounds of chemo cycles at that point. All the chemo had shrunk the tumour. It peeled away from all its organs. So they whipped the tumour and the kidney right out. And, so it was just a exhale, relief. But of course, he had to convalesce, and then they had to pivot and then deal with the 9 tumours on his lungs. And so that was more chemo and radiation this time as well. So it was,
and that was around the time that
that's why I'm bringing it up, because you put me back in the moment. Actually.
Well, and there we go. And I did that. This is the point of that. When I saw him, I put him back in that moment. I said, "Hey, William, do you remember when you were in the hospital? Because it's been a couple years now since. Do you remember when you came with the big check and you gave it to that sweet, cute little girl? Yeah, I remember that. And just that moment, these circles that are completing and all of these things. And you think about these big things. You said you don't want to get too spiritual, whatever, but how can you not think about words like destiny and serendipity and kismet and all of those things?
Oh, I'm a great believer in all of that, because I see it so often in life. It's constant. If you're looking for it, you'll see it right in front of you.
And if you ask for it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
If you ask for it, throw it out there, like that's hope. And hope is extremely important.
Yeah.
In those dire situations, in those rock bottom moments, and how at the bottom of the abyss, I love how you put that. At the bottom of the abyss, there can be something good, but you gotta look for it.
Yeah, you've got to be in there. You can't shy away from it. You've got to, in the darkest moments. I mean, people often say to me, "How did you get through it?" Because it was 4 years.
I'm getting to that. I got questions. Yes, how did you get through it? Let's talk about that.
So. Again, put it in perspective, people always said to me, or say to me even to this day, how did you manage every day emotionally? How did you deal with all of that? But in certain respects, it doesn't work like that. You, as a parent, you just have to. There is no choice. There is no choice.
Yes.
You have to just get on with it.
Yeah.
And one of the motivating point of things that go on in your head is that enables you to do that is because, of course, you're caring for somebody else that you love so dearly. Mm-hmm. So I had to get up every morning and had to be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and positive and also feel the emotional pain as well, with my son and family around, or extended family, because I had to pull William through it. It was my mission to pull him through. I couldn't do any of the medical stuff, but psychologically, because you've said these things are sanitized. All this treatment goes on, and you mentioned he's screaming through his treatment. The kids were. I mean, it was very, very, very. It's painful. We have these big buildings and hospitals, and the doctors go. Doctors are amazing at what they do. The treatments are amazing, but there's a price to pay. Physically and emotionally for that. And so you see that every day when you're sitting at your child's bedside, and you see it in other children. You have to dig very deep, and you have to stay focused on the mission at hand. That's the way to get through it. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that there are you could apply that to other roles that other people have in life that are very taxing, very on the edge, trying. One of the ways to get through is to just focus on what's in front of you and just deal with that. Because if you start thinking too much, you collapse in a heap, and then you can't help. You can't fulfill the mission, so to speak. Right.
Well, it's being present.
Yeah,
we've talked a lot on this podcast about being present through different ways of it's come up. But the idea that you're in that moment with your child, whatever, what happened yesterday, that doesn't matter.
Yep, move on.
And worried about the future. Well, no. Like, we got to deal with this right now. So who cares about any of that stuff? Because that stuff will come and that stuff will get dealt with. But right now, this has come and this has got to be dealt with in this moment.
That's 100%. 100%. I mean, there are other things, but that is a key cornerstone to how you work through it all.
Any guys who are going through something right now, like they're going through a divorce, they're going through, a really pivotal moment in a relationship with a family, a medical emergency, a job situation that they think is everything, right? And it's right in front of them. The idea of being able to take that deep breath and go, okay, let's just go through one moment at a time, just deal with everything that comes. We don't know what's going to happen. No. Many of the times that the things that we're afraid of are figments and they don't happen anyway. Absolutely. So why spend time on them?
Exactly. And William's a perfect example of that. We going back to his story. So once they'd got the kidney out, got the tumor out, I said they pivoted, they dealt with the 9 tumors on his lungs. Fortunately, after another 6 months or whatever of chemo and radiation, they managed to get rid of 7 of the 9 tumors. 2 were remaining, but they were so small they were deemed to be of negligible risk.
How small is that? Like, are we talking like
microscopic?
Microscopic.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
So
they've been diminished to such a degree.
Yeah.
They were larger than that, obviously to start, but diminished. And so they were deemed negligible risk. So we were sent home, and we finally got home. And when I got home, it was the first time I'd been home. You imagine that after 11 months or whatever it was at the time. We
were 5 months, and it was crazy. I can't even imagine 11.
It was crazy. Going home was a very strange experience. But on your point about the future, worrying about the future, we went back, breathed a sigh of relief. My God, this is all over, and got back into normal life for a few months. Yeah, we were required to go back every I think it was every month or every 2 months. Yep. I can't remember now, but to get testing and evaluation just to make sure everything was in check. And then unfortunately we went back, and William, the 2 tumors that had considered of negligible risk had suddenly erupted in the space of, I think it was 8 weeks since our previous visit. And so
they got angry.
But they were pissed, yeah. And the rapid growth was rapid, and so William relapsed, and we were thrown right back into it all again. And so on your point of if we'd have gone home and actually known that he was going to be in relapse, that time at home would have been wasted because of So it's just you need to get on and enjoy the now. If you've got that, you've got to do that because you just don't know what's coming around the corner. You don't.
No, and now everybody, just so you know, TJ could go through. There's a whole bunch, because this all happened with the pandemic, and there's a COVID thing. There's a whole bunch of chapters to this story. I do think at some point the book that could be written, or however it is that we do it, whether we do more of these, and you can tell the whole story, unbelievable stuff. In the interest of time for everybody, the relapse happened. Yep. But at the end of the day, that relapse is really what led to where we are now, in the sense that everything's okay. Like, it was kind of one final push, right? Or was there 2 in there that I'm missing?
There was a following relapse. So on the first relapse with the 2 tumors, they elected to remove one by surgery. So they removed, after losing a kidney, the year before and everything, they took out one of the lobes in his lung. They had to take one of those out. And then, and then they left the other one and hit it with chemo, a very intense chemo called ICE. And it wasn't, if anybody knows anything.
This was the last resort one, right?
No, this is before.
Okay, before. Okay. Yeah.
So they, there was one remaining tumor that they elected to hit it with chemo. They reduced it by about 60%. And anybody that knows cancer will say, okay, that's not good. If it's still there, and remember this tumor was there at the beginning, so it had been hit from day one,
different ways,
and it was still hanging around.
Yeah.
So we were sent home on that so they could think of a plan, and it immediately started growing again. And so relapse again, and we were then thrust into that fourth and final year, which was all treatment options were expelled. There were none left. So apart from giving him a stem cell transplant, a stem cell bone marrow transplant, and the idea is that, it's a one-shot deal. They give a 1 day's worth of chemo. It's very intense, very concentrated, and then it's designed to strip out a person's bone marrow in order that they can reintroduce stem cells, and the stem cells they'd harvested them already from a few years before. The stem cells then kickstart the immune system and start building new bone marrow. And the hope is that doesn't throw out cancer.
The things we can do now.
Oh, it's stunning. It's stunning. I mean, even the way they harvest the stem cells it's like a washing machine, basically, or a tumble dryer. They put somebody up to intravenous. Well, they take some blood and it circulates around a tub that they spin at high velocity.
Like a centrifuge doing that.
Yeah. Science is unbelievable, just amazing. But you become a little bit of an expert on these things, actually, as you will know, right?
Absolutely.
Not that you choose to, but
but the terminologies start coming.
Yeah. So
dots get connected.
So anyway, his final year was an all or nothing bone marrow stem cell transplant, and as we say, happy to say to date, he is clear of cancer for the first time in 4 years. Now, that there are no other treatment options, so we have to go every 3 months. We go back for evaluations and tests, but we're in this almost exclusive parent club where for 2.5 months. We enjoy life, the smallest things, all the things that you you always miss. We just love everything. I don't want to do anything special. I just want to watch movies and sit and go for walks and, play football or whatever. But then for 2 weeks, that's 2.5 months. And then for the 2 weeks lead up to testing, it's panic, but you manage through that. And we're so far so good. So there you go. That brings everybody up to date.
So that's up to date now.
That's up to date. So he's cancer free. It finished in this all or nothing bone marrow stem cell transplant. So
that kid I saw at that opening, who basically laughed off the idea of just being a kid and getting a check to this little girl. Do you remember? Yeah.
Well, let me tell you. He is. I mean, he's a happy, wonderful child.
Yeah.
But the good, any parent will know that the good thing for me, the thing that makes me smile is people say, how is he? And I always say, well, he's argumentative, messy, fights with his younger sister. It's just perfect.
Exactly where I was going.
That's it.
Exactly where I was going.
All those things that used to frustrate me and annoy me. The sound of
delight.
Them having a go at each other. I love it. The mess in his room. I leave the door open now. I love that mess. I don't want it outside of the room, but I love it. Contained chaos is okay.
He's playing football. He's doing all these things.
He's already back. So again, to put the timeline on it, we came back at the back end of last year, so probably about 6-7 months ago, and he's now back at football at a district level. He's stunted from the medication and a bit slower, but he's still good. He's got technical ability, and we used to when he was one of my motivating sort of exercises I used to do to him, if he could stand even in the room, I had a football in there, and just let everyone know we're talking soccer for your American organs.
They know.
Yeah, right.
They know.
There you go. Of course.
We got a smart audience here.
But I would take the football in there, either in the room or on the corridor if you could make the corridor, and then at times, rare moments when we were at Ronald McDonald's house in that back garden at Ronald McDonald's house, kicking the football just to keep him sharp in his mind, and it's not so much physically, but take his mind off things. There is a world outside of here,
normalcy,
away from here. Yeah,
and that's there's another. I think that's another tidbit of knowledge when we're in these situations or whatever. If you can get little moments of normalcy, that's a key right there. Okay, so he comes home, and I think within about a month that when you guys came home the last time, that's when you came over and visited Candy and I, and I was asking you about PTSD and things like that. How's your? I think the question I had for you at that day was, "How's your reentry? Are you having any reentry issues?"
You do. I mean, of course you do. And I at all times, of course I have my moments, but never know when they're coming. I can be standing at the sink, in the kitchen doing the washing up or whatever, and I'll suddenly burst into tears, and and it is PTSD. It's a release because you have to be strong and keep yourself together for so long. In our case, 4 years, right? That's a long time to perpetually be holding it together for your child and the people around you. So, I expected it. I think that was a saving grace in a way for me. It's not that I'm naive to these things. So
no,
and I wear my heart on my sleeve, as you know, Mike. Right. So it's not a problem for me. And
thank God for those bursting into tears, by the way. For anybody who's going through shit, if you start to burst into tears, don't stifle it. That's the body doing what it's supposed to do. That's emptying the glass that's full, that a drop will make a mess on the table. It's emptying.
It's akin to, a lot of people say about going to the gym or going for a run, it's a releaser. It's the same thing. Yep. And you've got to let it happen naturally. If you stop it, it will find its way out. And then probably in an unhealthy way. In an unhealthy way or environment or whatever. So, so I have my moments, and I find myself, it's not just the tears, sometimes I feel quite melancholy. I mean, when I was younger, before I was a parent, in my 20s, I suffered from mild depression. But I worked that out into my mid-30s, whatever. Because of the experience that we've been through with William, naturally, it's a heavy situation. So I find myself being a bit melancholy. I wouldn't say it's depression or anything like that, but I do find myself being down a little bit on certain days. And sometimes I can put my finger on it, and I know it's William, and I know what I'm thinking about. But other times it's just there, and I know it's the PTSD, it's the built-up stress. With William's, with all the horror show that was treatment and being at the hospital, and not just William, but other children and families, seeing what they've gone through, your mind naturally relives those moments. You can't help that. If it doesn't do it consciously, then it does it subconsciously. But again, you just have to let it ride through. You have to work through that.
I appreciate you being so vulnerable about that. It helps. And I mean, if there's one thing that we've learned in these 100 and some odd episodes that we've done so far, is that vulnerability it's the gateway to helping to heal. And also, folks like you being vulnerable about things like that gives massive food for thought for the people out there in the tech. One of Candy's early tech, I don't even know if you'd want to call him an advisor, but I mean, he's exited a business and all that sort of stuff. And it was a social media type thing that he did. He said, hey, you got to understand, there's the 1-9-90 rule. 90% of people are going to look at this kind of stuff and they're just going to lurk. They're not going to participate at all. 9% are going to contribute a little bit. You put up a post of some sort or whatever, they'll interact with it, that sort of thing. And then there's 1% of people that will put up posts and be the leader and do that. You're being the 1% right now by being vulnerable that way. And there's 90% of people out there who are appreciating this vulnerability and you opening up and sharing your inner TJ and how things are manifesting for you.
I think you've got to be. I think you've got to be real. You've got to be real to yourself. Yeah, you have to live, and I think that's the way. It's it's like that. I don't know if it's Buddhism or whatever, but getting that yin and yang, that equilibrium, right? Yeah. To achieve that inner sort of not just calmness but stability inside yourself, you've got to live each emotion, happiness, sadness, whatever. Yeah. But you've got to keep it just in perspective. That's really the mission. The mission isn't to hide any of these emotions or not feel them to yourself. Yeah. It's just to not let them get out of control or be manifest to be bigger than they actually are. It's to keep them in perspective. Keep the perspective. I appreciate the hell out of you. I want to finish off here by finishing off with the foundation. I started this podcast by saying this might be, I'm very excited about this podcast because of the idea that we're shooting something that's going to help the He Changed It audience. By the way, thank you very much for everything that you're doing for He Changed It, by the way. I got to say that. I know in that visit when you came here and we actually started, you knew a little bit about He Changed It and all that kind of stuff, but you had your own shit to deal with and stuff. But that day when you came here, that I was talking about the reentry issue day,
Candy told you a little bit about what HeChangedIt was doing and what it was all about. And you're, holy cow. So thank you. And I can't thank you enough for not only believing it is what we're doing, but actually the helping hand that you're giving us. Thank you for that.
It's a fantastic, concept and idea, and, and businesses. I mean, it's working. It works. It's giving people, like with the Wilms Cancer Foundation, it's filling a need. There is a need. And you guys are doing a great job.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for being you, and thank you for everything, the TJ effect. But I want to now, think about, now that we're at the fact where he is cancer free, and we take every day as a gift, and we know all that, but at the same time, we're also thinking about bigger things, and I want to end this by talking about the foundation. Now, first and foremost, let's do anybody who wants to reach out to the foundation, where's the best place to do it? Anybody who wants to follow any of the exploits and the adventures of the foundation, where's the best place?
Best place, obviously, is online.
Yeah.
So it's the wilmsfoundation.org, and Wilms is WILMS foundation.org. And on there you can read all about William's story, our story, but also the story of other families too, and the disease itself, what we're doing, what others are doing, not just here, but worldwide, internationally. And you'll see that it's grown. We're very proud of it. It's growing quite well.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
I mean, we've got participation from people from the world of sports and entertainment who are behind us, and we're
the highest level of sports and entertainment already. And just starting.
We're very fortunate. We recently had our first sports franchise, which is the BC Lions CFL team, and we've got a number of. I'll leave people to go and have.
There are many irons and many fires right now.
A lot, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and we've just we just opened a chapter or branch office down in Australia. So we've opened up Australia, and the same's happening in the UK too. We're already in the States, and the more people,
a little bit bigger than just BC.
A little bit than that initial cost. Yeah. So the more people we can help. I mean, there's the need, and we're delighted. And if I may, I'd like to go back to one of the points you made about emotions and stuff and being connected.
Yeah.
When we originally started the foundation, we have this system where if people are looking for support, they can send in an application or submit stuff, and they have to tell us what's going on, and their doctor has to sort of verify all that. So I get to read a lot of stories of other families who are in terrible situations. It's all relative. Right?
It's all relative.
We've been through different things.
Yep.
But I don't have to do that now. There are other people, but I choose to do it. I want to stay connected with what's absolutely going on with everybody. I'm invested in them. I want to help them. So anyway, I digress a bit, but the foundation is it's if you can find it online, there's social media platforms as well.
Yep.
We've got the largest content of Wilms related video content in the world. It's being used by hospitals around the world
already.
Yeah, already. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. I love that you're already able to say that in this very, very short period of time, relatively, that you can say that now. I just want an exclamation point. If the foundation had, I don't want to use the term mission statement. If there's anything that the foundation wanted to do, we're talking about awareness.
Yep.
We're talking about helping to research for cure.
Yep.
And we're talking about helping folks who are gripped in the grips of situations similar to yours in the depths of treatment. Yeah. So really at the end of the day, those are the three main areas of what the foundation is setting out to do. Is it, do I have that right?
It is. Yeah. So it's, it's very much, it's advocacy, awareness, education, advocacy, and support and research. Right?
Yeah.
So, already we're going through a program right now. We're delivering 65,000 leaflets to pediatric cancer clinics and oncology centers throughout North America, which tells people about the support we can offer them, so that they know we're there. That's one of the greatest problems, right? Is it's reaching people that need support. Like, we're here. We're doing the same for the rest of the world as well. We're implementing a program. But if anybody can help in any way, whether it's through donation or networking or help us create more awareness, anything at all, then we're come to us. We're a creative organization. We like to think outside of the box. So, I'd invite people to reach out to us.
I'm going to finish this by the same way that I started. Thank you for letting me leverage our relationship for you to do this. Thank you for allowing me to help broadcast your message here. If this is the first podcast because we're talking about maybe it's a crossover. If this is the first podcast of the Wilms Foundation, I'm honored to be a part of that and to help any way I can with any skills that I have, help get this message out there. And at the end of the day, we all want to change the world, right? I look at what Candy and her team are doing. They want to change the world. I look at what you're doing. You are changing the world. It's happening right now. TJ, I'm so fucking grateful that there are guys like you on this planet. And I'm so grateful that you're in my life. I love you so much.
Ditto.
That's it.
Thanks, mate.
No, thank you, man. That's it. I think maybe you might be able to see how all of our episodes are special, and I say that they're like little Fabergé eggs, like I said earlier. But this one here, obviously, massive personal relationship with this episode, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Once again, HeChangedIt.com for any of the info. If you want to download the app, it's there right now. And these are the types of people that we're hanging with because we all want to make the world a better place. And the more we interact and network and help in certain areas, we can all do that. We can all scratch each other's backs. And that's what heCast is all about. So that being said, this has been another episode of heCast, the official podcast of HeChangedIt. My name is Mike Chisholm. Go change something.